This week on FTRTV, we're gonna pump this return. G'day everyone, my name is David Mai and welcome to episode number 3 of First Time Reefer TV. This week we're going to add a return pump to the Cade 600 build, and that means I'm going to get this bad boy wet. Now I know, I've been MIA for quite a few weeks, but I've had a little baby boy and I found it a little bit difficult to find some time to shoot these videos, but I'm back baby, I'm back, and we're ready to get this tank wet and get a pump into it today. So, when choosing a return pump, there's a couple of key components that you have to think about. First of all, what is the pump that you're going to go with? Are you going to go with an AC pump or are you going to go with a DC controllable pump? Now, AC pump just runs continuously at a single speed, and DC pump converts that AC to DC, and it has a controllability function. You can stop the pump via control as well. Generally, they're more silent, have more torque, but the downside is they're usually a little bit more expensive than your AC pumps. So from what I've been told is if you can go to the DC pumps, the benefits are worth it. But if the budget doesn't allow, then you just have to go to the AC pumps. And second thing you have to take into consideration is the head height. How far is it from the pump to the top of where the pump is pumping to? Because over a short distance, the pumps will lose their efficiency and how much output they have. So you've got to read the chart on your packaging, or that comes with your pump, to find out if you've got a meter head height, how much flow there is at maximum power, and is that going to be suitable for what you want to use it for. Third thing is you have to decide how many times do you want to turn over the volume of water in your tank. Do you want it 2 times, 3 times, 5 times, or 10 times? So it just depends on how much flow you need in your tank and how much flow you actually want to run in your tank. The next thing you have to consider is, can the overflow of your tank handle the amount of flow that you want to put into it? Because if the overflow can't handle it, then there's no point putting that amount of flow through. Now that is another benefit of having a DC pump. You can dial in the amount of flow that your pump can produce, so then you can try and make sure that even if you do oversize on a pump, you can actually control and dial it down, so you make sure you dial it into your overflow. Now remember, your return pump is a pump that runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, so it runs continuously non-stop. It is the life and the heart of your entire reef system. So when you are selecting a pump, make sure you browse through forums and have a good read about, user reviews and whether it's going to be suitable for what you want, and whatever's in your budget, is it going to be okay? Because the last thing you want is your pump to break down on you and then your reef system stuck without anything circulating the water through your main display tank and also your sump. So it's a very, very important key to make sure that you choose and research properly before you decide on going with a pump. Now with your return pumps, I suggest using the strainers that are with them, or having some sort of protection so then things don't eventually make their way into the impeller or any large objects that could actually damage the impeller or damage the pump. And therefore obviously putting your pump out of action until you can get that rectified. Now also another thing you should take into consideration is redundancy. What are you going to do if your pump stops working? Do you have a backup pump that you can put in the meantime until you get your main pump fixed? What are you going to do when it's a power out? Are you going to have a backup battery for your return pump, or you have some sort of battery so then your wave makers can still operate? So redundancy is key to making sure that your reef system doesn't crash in the case of a power outage or the pump just shitting itself. So that brings me to, which pump have I decided to go for the Cade 600 build? Now with the benefits of DC controllability in a pump, I couldn't pick another style of pump to go with. So obviously I've chosen to go with the DC pump, and today we're going to go with the Jiebao DCP 5000 DC pump. So this pump here is the new release from Jiebao. I ordered this online at fishstreet.com, and it's the latest release of their DC controllability pumps. It's rated at 5,500 litres an hour, had 4 meters of head height and draws 40 watts of power. Now we'll unbox this now and we'll show you what's inside and what actually comes with the pump. First thing we've got is all the fitting attachments here, which connect onto the pump so you can plumb that into your reef system. We've got a strainer, which I was talking about before, to avoid anything being able to get into the impeller on the inlet side. And you've got here the power supply. This here is the actual control module, so that will allow you to control the DC pump down to 65% of capacity right up to 100%. So just allows you to dial it into your tank and just reduce the amount of flow if you need it, or increase it when you do need it. There's also a pause function on there, and the pause function will be for a feed mode, so you can stop the pump circulating for a period of 10 minutes. So you can feed your fish or do any quick maintenance on your tank if you need to. And then here we've got the actual pump itself. You can see that it's quite a large pump, and it is rated at 5,000 litres an hour. So you'll see here you got this side is where the water comes in, goes to the impeller and goes out the top, which goes back into your tank, and that's where you plumb it through. So we'll put this together now. We'll start with the strainer. So you can either use one of these fittings on the end here if you're hard plumbing from another outlet, but I'm going to use a strainer because it's just going into the return pump reservoir. So that just screws into the end here. And for future maintenance, this can just pop off like that. You can get in there, give it a quick clean, and then just pop this back on like that. So that's that side done. Now we're going to connect the top. So it'll depend on which size plumbing you have on your tank, which will decide which one you go with. But you need one rubber grommet which goes in there, which is the O-ring. And I'm going to go with one of the smaller fittings, the smallest fitting. So that goes on top of your O-ring there, and this nut just screws over the top to hold it in place. Right, so water in here, out that way, and that goes to your return plumbing to go back into the tank. So you've got a power cable on this side, and that'll connect into that down here. And you'll see you just match up the pins, push them in, and then just screw that over, just so it creates a nice watertight seal. So you got that, and then your power supply connects into the bottom of this. Right, so that's all of that stuff connected. So your power supply from your wall goes to your control module controls the pump with all your fittings attached there. So we'll quickly get this onto the K600 tank, and I'll show you how to connect the plumbing from here to my actual return piping. Alrighty guys, I've got the DCP 5000 pump connected and in the sump now. The pump has a really nice snug fit, so luckily I checked the sizing. So that's another key thing to think of when you're choosing a pump for your tank, to make sure the pump actually fits into your sump. So I've just had to make up a little bit of a fitting just to connect the plumbing of the K tank to the actual fitting of the pump. Just because the flexi hose that was supplied doesn't actually just fit over the fitting on the pump there. So I just mocked up a couple of PVC pieces just to reduce down the size so I can get the flexi hose over the end of the return pump. So that's all connected now, it's inside the sump, it's all secure. So that means we can finally get this tank wet. So I'm going to get some water. I've got some water thanks to Reef Aquarium down in Dandenong. Got a link in the bio there. They supply me with some water for the tank, so I really can't wait to actually get the pump running on this tank. So we'll fill the tank now, and then we'll turn the pump on and see how it all runs. It's a big moment, the first drum of water going into the tank. as you're filling your tank, you just got to make sure that you're having a look every now and then, just in case there's a leak in the tank or something's gone wrong or a seal's not tight. You never know what's going to happen. So just make sure you're having a look at your tank every now and then as you're filling, just to make sure that there's no problems coming out. It's all looking good, so we'll just keep filling it up now. We're not far to go. It's just getting to the stages of hitting the overflow and the inflow. So that's actually sucking down where the return pump would be sucking out, blowing out at the moment. So it's just going to let it get a little bit taller, and then we'll start trickling over this overflow here. It's going to be really important to fill the sump once the tank's like this, just so you know what your maximum water height is going to be in your sump while the tank is off. You don't want your tank, if power goes out or anything like that your tank's going to flood your sump. So filling up this, that's the height that the tank's going to be at pretty much with power pumps off. And you just got to see how the tank, the sump is once it's full. So now the sump's full, and that obviously the tank's not running, so we're just going to mark out the water height that it's at the moment. So that's sort of the max height that I want to have in the sump there if anything ever does happen to it. So now I'm going to connect the pump, switch it all on, and then once the water's pumped into the tank, we're going to mark where that water level is. And then that way we know that once our running level say here, that we always try and top up to that. And then if the power ever goes off, at least if it's on or below that water line, it's never going to overflow beyond that mark there. In the moment of truth, we're going to connect the return pump and see how this tank runs. Now the tank's running. As you can see here, obviously the overflow is quite noisy, but now the time is to dial it in. So we just want to make sure that we're restricting the flow just a little bit, just to make sure that the water height in the back parcel weir here is high enough, just so it's not that gurgling sound from the overflow. So it's just a little bit of playing around with that. But as you can see, the water height's sitting there. The water height in the sump I'll mark off in a second, so I know the most amount of water I can have in the sump is down there. We'll just leave that running a little bit. Keep an eye on the overflow, keep an eye on the water heights. The pump, I'm going to say, is silent. Super, super silent. I certainly can't hear it. The sound of water is probably a little bit more louder than the pump itself. So I've got the water height in the back parcel weir here, just about an inch under the emergency overflow. As you can probably hear, that's a lot more quieter than what it was. You can hear a bit of water splashing down there, but with a couple of mods or a filter stopper saying, that'll fix that up. So we're going to mark off the water height now in the sump, just so we know that's the maximum amount of water that we can have in the sump there. And the tank, my friends, is wet. Now the fantastic thing about having a DC controllable pump is you've got the control panel here, which you can adjust how much flow you actually need in the tank. So you can see we can ramp it right up to 100%. So that's running on full power now, and you'll hear the difference, and that's running at 39, nearly 40 watts once it's probably ramped up. And we'll see the flow up the top now. You can see all that water just running down the overflow. And then when we adjust it down, which I've got it down sitting at about 55% at the moment. So that's running at 55%, I'm assuming. It's only drawing at 16 watts. As you can see, there's no vortex on top of the emergency overflow anymore. And obviously, with my adjustment of the valve, that's the flow that I've dialed into the overflow there. And there you can see that down here, that emergency overflow is no longer flowing. It's a lot quieter. Let's just adjust it. Or that valve up there. So that's dialing it in using a DC control. So we finally got the return pump hooked up into this tank now. It's just full of water and running. It's pretty exciting to finally get water into this tank. So next week we're going to look at getting a light into this tank. So maybe tell me what you guys think I should be looking at to light up this tank. Now if you guys are enjoying my videos, please hit the like button. Feel free to leave a comment, subscribe to my channel, check out my Instagram at First Time Reefer, and make sure you follow me there as well. So join me next time, guys, for the next episode of FTRTV. Till then, peace!